everybody, and welcome to the show. Hope you're all well. This is episode 149 of the Meet the Farmers podcast, and I'm Ben Eagle. Today on the show, I'm heading up to southwest Scotland to speak to a lady who has worn and continues to wear many hats. Her experience is so broad, it's almost impossible to know where to start, and it generally is. I've been when I was writing this intro, I was thinking, how on earth do I actually introduce her? But anyway, we've got Sheena Horner on the show. She has been involved in agriculture and the wider rural sector pretty much her whole life, having grown up on a farm in Dumfries and Galloway before starting her varied career, which ranged from a secondment with DEFRA during the foot and mouth outbreak in 2001 to a long stint with Natural England, consultancy, chili growing, and involvement with numerous rural-based organisations. And we will speak about several of those today. And no, don't worry, listeners, this won't be about 5 hours. Well, it might be, but we'll see. She's a trustee of the Crichton Trust. She's chair of the Dumfries and Galloway Economic Leadership Group and part of the Eat Farm Now team. In 2020, she started hashtag Run 1000, which many of you I know will have taken part in. That was an initiative that highlighted the benefits of walking and running on mental health, and it raised a huge amount of money for several different rural mental health charities and initiatives across the UK. Sheena, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ben, for asking me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Let's start local. Tell us about Wigton and the surrounding area. I mean, I know it as Scotland's book town, of course. And I actually spent a summer several years back on a sheep and beef farm in Galloway. So I remember whenever I got the odd sort of day off, I headed down there. But tell us about it, and also tell us about the Food and Drink Festival there, which you're chair of that.
Wigtown is a fantastic place, but then obviously I would say that I grew up 4 miles away from the town, and I left when I was 17, and I came back 17 years later, and oh my God, what a change it was to the town. It had totally transformed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there, as with all places, there's the people that say, oh, I wish it was back to the good old days, but would it still be the same town? Would it still be so vibrant and exciting? And yeah, it's a fantastic town. It's just busy with tourists and people coming to the bookshops, and then you get to the last week in September to the first week in October, and it's just boom. You can be walking down the street and you just don't know who you might bump into, have a conversation with, and yeah it's just brilliant.
And can you just describe us, I suppose, the landscape of Dumfriesshire, Galloway, anyway, for anyone who doesn't really know it?
Well, we're saying back to why when I grew up and then the town kind of disappeared and then it was reinvented. This is predominantly was a huge dairy area. It still is.
Yeah.
There's one thing that we can grow here really well. It is grass. It's very green and luscious, and we used to have creameries all over the place. I mean, I can go back as a child and name all the ones in the local villages, the amount of people that used to work there, and now we've only got 2. We've got one up at Stranraer and we've got one over at Lockerbie.
Yeah, but
it's still a lot of dairy, so there is here, but nowhere near what there used to be.
And as we'll see as we go through, and anyone who knows you knows that you are quite a busy person. You throw yourself into quite a lot of different things. So I suppose just going to ask with an initial question, which, I mean, what is it that drives you? Why is this important to you? And I suppose, especially, I mean, you're involved in principally rural-based organisations. Clearly, that's rural sector is really important to you. But why is that?
I always wanted to farm, and I should be farming, and I'm not. And this is my way of being able to do it. So, as I say, I grew up on a hill farm, and we bred pheasants. We used to rear 30,000 pheasants a year, and we had 21 suckler cows. I always remember we had 21 cattle, and I was the oldest child. It was a rented farm, and I always expected to go back there. And I returned to the area, as I say, when I was 34. My husband and I came here, and I was still working for Natural England at the time, but I actually did expect to go back to the farm. And then the bombshell dropped that the estate had been put in the market. My dad actually bought the farm, which was fantastic. And then he sold all the land back to the new owner of the estate.
Right.
So, I had no farm to go back to. So yeah, and I suppose if somebody wanted to farm in the early days, they would have had made plans to maybe go and work in farms, etc. Do bits, which I did, but I always thought I would come back to the family farm. So that never happened. But I still feel very strongly about the sector,
Yeah.
and I suppose my experience as I've grown is about it's also about it, they're primary producers, and they're still part of all the food and drink scene, and it's something I feel really strongly about, especially seasonal and local produce.
And what about, take me back to perhaps happier memories growing up there? What was the farm like growing up?
It was great. I mean, with people, yeah, I was never involved in young farmers, and actually, and because I'd left home at the time, and maybe it's maybe one regret that I should have been. But as a kid, I was a proper farm kid. Couldn't get me to nursery as a bairn because yeah, I would kick and scream because I wanted to stay on the farm. I loved it. It was only 4 miles out of Wigtown, but the last 2 miles was up on a state road, and the last mile was a dirt track, and we were actually pretty high that we got snowed in during school time, and the Wigtown would still be green, and people wouldn't believe us, but you just couldn't get down the road.
Yeah.
So even though it was quite close to civilization, it was quite isolated still, and I just absolutely loved it.
Because I mean, there's quite a lot of forestry going on now down there as well, isn't there? Now how has that changed?
Yes, unfortunately, and we're still getting all that about pushing, and we need more trees, etc. And there's quite a few farms just recently again that have been planted, which is absolutely frustrating. Really good hill land that you could have had livestock on, and yeah, it's a big push, and I can see the changes growing up. And as I say, I was a wildlife advisor, and I love working with biodiversity as well, and the bird life that you used to see that we don't see anymore because the trees are there. We used to have black grouse, etc., which
Yeah.
actually they are returning in places, but we don't have anything like we used to do, and it's a bit of a shame. And I mean, yeah, plant all the hardwoods you want, but we really don't need any more softwoods in this area.
I mean, so you left home at 17. You went to college, and then you went to work for the Scottish Department of Agriculture. And before we started recording, you said that's like your dream job. That's what you'd already wanted to do. How did that all come about? And why? Why did you want to go down that line?
Well, when I said when I was growing up on the farm, we used to have a fantastic agricultural advisor that used to come out, and this is really bad. I can't remember his name, but he used to look forward to him coming, which I'm sure all farmers are going, what? And obviously he'd come and check the cattle numbers and make sure what you're doing thing was correct. But he used to give you advice. He used to help you. And I just thought, what an absolutely brilliant job. So yeah, it really was the job I always wanted to do. And vacancies came up, and I was really successful. I got a job, and I went up to Aberdeen for 2 years and worked for the department, and then I moved across to Oban and worked out at the Oban office, but covers South Kintyre, which is actually a very similar area to here. It's a predominantly was a dairy area, but I absolutely loved it, meeting people, and it was just fantastic. But then it changed, and unfortunately, you weren't out there to help. Well, you still were, but it was a kind of a case of that was less hands-on, more in the office, more sticking to the rules and regulations, and they had to do this and make sure they were doing that, and how could we make sure that yeah, it just changed, and it just wasn't the same job anymore. So
Yeah.
I left.
You then went on to work for Harrison and Hetherington, the UK's largest livestock trading company. What did you learn from that time?
I loved it. Back in against the farming community again, and actually it was surprising how many people used to bump into from South Kintyre that were down there, and you're absolutely miles away. But yeah, because it was the biggest auction mart, so you'd be like, my office used to look into the concourse, so it was fantastic. I'd be working on market days, I'm like, oh, there's so and so running down the stairs. Hello. But yeah, no, I loved that job. I loved selling the quota, buying quota for other people. It was a great job, and yeah, and then unfortunately, but I was there during 2001.
Yeah, which yeah, we are referring to foot and mouth there. I mean, that took place, of course. You were seconded to DEFRA. Take me back to some of your memories of that time. I mean, it must have been immensely difficult on the ground.
It was, but the one thing I always the one thing I always did, obviously there was that many people seconded into it, but I was from farming. I understood it.
Yeah.
I really could sympathise with what they were going through.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the first thing I ever did when I went out, because my job was I actually did supervise and the slaughter and disposal of the animals. That was my job. But it was having empathy. It was going out. It was meeting the families and saying that I really do understand how upset you are, because I'd be exactly the same. And just looking after them. And actually, I mean, we touched on mental health when you introduced me, but again, at a point like that as well, it was making sure they were okay. I mean, people used to laugh at me, but quite often you would be there for more than a day. And I lived in Carlisle, so I would, in the mornings, I'd actually nip into one of the supermarkets, and my own money, I'd actually take bags of shopping out to them, because they couldn't leave the farm, and especially if there were kids there was always sweets you would put into them, just things to kind of say, I know it's awful, but here's something to kind of keep you going, and even phone them to say, look, is there anything that you do want me to bring in? But no, it was a tough time for everybody.
And you were at Natural England for quite a long time. What was your role there, and where were you working there as well?
So I actually started with the Rural Development Service. That's where I was initially, and then of course they amalgamated, and I became Natural England's. And probably one of the best jobs I ever had was the Rural Development Service, and I was working on a scheme to help businesses and communities diversify. So this is really bad. I can't even remember the name of the scheme, but but it was good. You would, if people were interested, they contact you. You would go out, you would sit with them, you would discuss their what they wanted to do, whether you thought it was a good project and it would be viable. I remember with a couple of community shops, we had a farm that diversified into being an open farm basically, and it was just taking them through it, and whether the business plan was a good model, whether we thought it was financially viable for them, and then that the applications would go to a board, and then they would decide whether they were successful or not. And I absolutely loved that.
That's really interesting. Because actually, there's actually quite a lot of crossover there between what you did then and part of what you're doing now as well.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, so it's good how things kind of go full circle. But unfortunately, that work disappeared when Rural Development Service amalgamated with the other two agencies. That work didn't come with Natural England, so I got put into planning.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that's one word you definitely don't put with planning. So that was me not a happy person, because I just had to sit and read documents, and that was not fun. I mean, it was a great experience again, I suppose, and I did learn bits and pieces through it, but no, it was not my favourite job. But thankfully, a post came up at the time for wildlife advisors, and I applied for that, and I was successful. So I should say initially I worked in Yorkshire, but then I actually I became a wildlife advisor. I was across in Cumbria at the time, so it was actually kind of coming home, because I went to college there. I was at Newton Riggs, and I also worked at the auction mart. So yeah, I love Cumbria, so it was great to come back across there.
When did you meet Neil, your husband?
That would have been 2001. You know, I said I supervised the slaughter and disposal of the animals. You had to get lorries to come in and uplift the animals. He was one of those lorry drivers.
I mean, that is a slightly unexpected turn from those events. Wow.
Oh yeah, such a romantic story.
Okay, let's talk about chilies, because I'm fascinated by this, but at the same time, it's like how it sort of links into your story generally. I mean, how did all that start, and when did you first start growing them?
So yeah, return back here, I was 34, and I keep telling everybody when I was travelling, which sounds fantastic, and they all think, oh, I was abroad and everything. And I went, no, Aberdeenshire, Yorkshire, but they had spicy food in those areas, and we didn't have it at home.
Of course.
So I returned home with a real liking for spicy food, and yeah, as I say, I still describe this neck of the woods as a mint and tarties mentality. We like our nice plain food here. To be fair, it has changed a lot now, but when I came back, it probably was still a bit like that. I couldn't get chilies in the supermarkets. I could get jalapenos if I was lucky. Occasionally, I might get some bird's eye chilies, but that was it. So I thought, let's have a go at growing them. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending who you're speaking to, you said speak to my husband, he's probably going to say unfortunately. I'm really good at it.
And then one thing led on to another.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you grow about 30 different varieties.
Yeah, because I've calmed down now. I've been way up into the 70s because
Wow.
I'm like a kid in a sweetie shop in December. I in December I go onto the websites and I start looking at it. All the seeds comes from two fantastic companies, Simpson Seeds down south, and also Sea Spring Seeds. Both people lovely, know them really well, and all my chili seed comes from there. But you go online and you start going through all these chilies and you think, oh, that one sounds really good, and oh, I might have that one, and oh, what about that one over there? And yeah, I'm terrible.
So do you
must
try
stop buying so
different
many.
ones each year?
Well, yeah, I always have to try some new ones, but I also that's my favourite. So I love orange habaneros. I love yellow seven pots, and I love lemon drops. They're probably my three favourite chilies.
Great names. How many varieties are there generally?
Thousands,
Blimey.
thousands.
Wow.
So me getting to 70 odd, I'm still behaving
I was
myself.
going to say you've got a little way to go then.
Yeah.
Don't tell Neil. Talk us through the process from germination right there through to your final chili.
So, well, the hotter they are, the longer it takes them to grow. So you always start with your super hots first of all. And I had a group round here yesterday, and I keep saying they really have the silliest name ever. They're called chili, and they absolutely detest the cold. So in the 1st of January, the propagators get on, and we've now got 3 propagators, and they sit at 28 degrees centigrade.
Oh, wow.
And get them up to heat, and then we start to planting. And we do it gradually. So we start with the hottest first of all, and we'll continue right through to March, doing them in stages, and then we'll do the mildest near the end of March. And then I start off with seedlings, get them germinated. That can take anything up to 20 plus days. So an awful lot of people say to me, "Oh, I can't grow chilies," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're just impatient, basically." Normally that's the reason.
Just wait.
Yeah, patience. Just put them and forget about them, really, and they will come.
Okay.
And then they eventually, when the last frost, which still hasn't happened because it was minus 1.1 here this morning, they will eventually go into the tunnel, and then that's we will leave them there until they fruit, which can be anytime from July onwards. And again, with the frosts, we have picked in December because it's been really mild.
Wow. I take it you can never go away then, because they're like children.
At this time, when you're germinating and before you've got them into the tunnel, that's the hard time. You need somebody to trust if you do go away.
Yeah.
Because if it's like today, it's really sunny already. Well, I'm in the conservatory at the moment. It's 25.1 degrees in here, and there's actually a propagator here. And if the lids were still on that, I would end up cooking the chilies. They would they would shrivel up because it'd be too hot for them.
Oh wow! Okay, so you've actually got to keep them. Yeah, you keep them between that
You've
window.
You've got to be. Yeah, I mean they get water normally in the mornings, but if for some reason they've got mist, and then you think, oh no, look at the heat. So yeah, you've got to get the propagators. We need them at 28 degrees, but they can quite easily get a lot higher than that. So we just take the lids off them.
Okay. Where do most chilies in the world come from?
All over. A lot of them used to come from Egypt. A lot of them used to come from Kenya. I'll do my thing that everybody just rolls their eyes at, but I'm that sad when it comes to chilies that I can walk into our Sainsbury's store in Newton Stewart, walk down the fruit and veg aisle, and if I walk past the chilies, I can tell you when they become British because I can actually smell them.
Wow, no, that's amazing.
And it's the same. It's back to that seasonality thing. It's like our strawberries, etc.
Yeah, or
chilies,
or even tomatoes as well.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you can smell them. They're far tastier.
And how are you marketing your chilies?
My chilies now are actually being grown for another couple of businesses in Scotland. Some of them are going up to Aberdeenshire, to Singularity Sauce Company. We're growing for him, and then there's a little business not far away from here, a jam business, and she takes the lemon drops.
Nice. Wow, I bet that tastes amazing. God, I love that.
The lemon drops are one chili they actually do, as to say. So there's other varieties, like you can get chocolate habaneros, and everybody goes, oh, chocolate. Like, no, the chocolate's to do with the colour. They do not taste of chocolate, and they're actually extremely hot. So be careful. the lemon drops are quite a nice heat, and they also do actually have a citrusy taste. So I love having a slice of lemon drop in a gin.
Okay, I just find the chocolate thing funny. I still do a little bit of homebrew, and used to do a lot more. And I mean, chocolate malts, which sound amazing. I just thought, yeah, it's going to say nothing to do with chocolate at all. So you now also produce. You're producing various herbs as well, including I think about 20 different varieties of mint. Is that right?
Double that.
Yeah,
I think the last
double
count I
that
had
now.
was over 40. Yeah.
Blimey! So I mean, are you aiming to do? I take it you're aiming to do more of the herbs then alongside the chilies.
Yeah, but hard to herbs again. It's probably back to that supermarket thing again. Sorry, supermarkets. But you go in and you buy a herb in there, and they're in a pot, and they've been forced on, and there's been too many seeds put in the pot in the first place, and you put them in your windowsill, and quite often they don't last very long.
They really don't
So,
last. They really don't last. I've fallen foul of that before.
So my herbs, in fact, I was actually discussing them the other day with a chef, and I was saying my herbs, they've actually got to be overwintered. They've got to be hard herbs, so I need to prove that they've actually survived the winter here before I will do anything with them. Okay. And then they go out to a lot of hospitality business are interested in them, especially mints nowadays. Go back to that gin thing, there seems to be a current theme. But the perfect serve, and there's so many different flavours of mints nowadays. So depending, I have lemon, lime, chocolate, orange, grapefruit. So there's that's just a few spearmints. There are normal ones as well, but yeah, we have lots of different ones. Strawberry, it's extremely nice.
Wow, blimey, that is opening my eyes to a whole new world. Yeah, let's talk about your consultancy business, Food from Farming, because that sort of came about as a result of the chili business. I mean, you've obviously got you had a great network sort of existing anyway, and you had, because you've had several different hats. You're working in lots of different contexts. But how did Food from Farming come about? Tell us about that, and what you do now.
Food from Farming was set up because just experience that I gained setting up my own business, and it started off just with digital marketing and social media. I use that as my advertising. As I was saying to a group this week, you could pay for an advert in a paper, it would probably cost you a fortune.
Yep.
And who would read it?
Yep.
Social media just costs your time, and and it can be very time consuming, but you should be able to get that work-life balance with it. But just putting posts out there, and you don't know who's going to pick them up and who's going to see them. And I discovered I was quite good at it again,
and
like it did a good job of marketing my business. So I actually used to run accounts for other people and help them out. And then I thought, yeah, I love helping people. I was like, maybe I should make this into a business. So I did, and it just ticked along. It didn't do very much, but I was really busy with the chili business anyway.
Yep.
And then we get to COVID, and that's when everything changed, because for the first 6 months of COVID, I had no income, and thankfully my husband was extremely supportive and supported both of us. He was a lorry driver, so we never seen him because he was working all over the place. But I used to make my chilies used to go into products, so I used to make preserves with them, and I had 40 odd stockists, and I won quite a few awards with the products. But I became too successful as far as my environmental health officer was concerned, and she said I needed to move into commercial premises.
Okay.
And because I'd invested everything I had into the business, and there was nowhere round about here to move into, I decided to stop. I decided, right, that's it, and I was just going to grow the chilies and the herbs.
Yep.
And I had a great outlay for the herbs, but then COVID happened, all the hospitality businesses closed, and nothing was there. So during that time, one of the businesses that I was helping out, their social media, came to me and said that regional food groups were being set up in Scotland. It was an application process, but Ayrshire had decided to apply, and they were looking for a regional food group coordinator.
Okay. And
would I want my name put forward for it? So I said yes, and I was successful. They took me up. They said that they would like me to be the coordinator, and I actually ended up doing the application and put it in. And through that, the amount of work I have now, it's fantastic. It's stuff that I love doing. Yeah. I'm the regional food group coordinator for both Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway. As I was saying to you this morning, I've just completed a learning journey in Dumfries and Galloway. I had a group of people across from Arran that I showcased this region over the last 3 days. There's now a team of 4 of us. and it's many different aspects, but all involved in food and farming. Because I hate that we say that there's food and drink sector and then there's a farming sector, and surely it should all be joined up, because farming, they're primary food producers.
Yeah. It's what we bang about on with loads of guests in the past of this. We've talked about that, and I still find it completely baffling. I don't know how much of it is a culture thing from a farming perspective, whether we're doing enough.
I actually wonder if it's organisations as well, because we've got different organisations, and they are either food and drink or they're farming, and why do they not encompass everything and make it wider?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to 2020, which it was crap, wasn't it? It was like just in so many ways. It was just everyone has their own story, and clearly, you went through a lot of challenges then. But one of the brilliant things that came out of that time was the idea for Run 1000. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I used to be a runner. I absolutely loved running at school. I used to do cross country. I was a really good sprinter. Used to love the long jump, etc.
Okay.
Then I went to college and discovered socialising, and running just stopped. Can't go running today. I was out last night. So anyway, parkrun finally started up in this area. We have a parkrun at Stranraer, which is local. It's still 25 miles away, but to us that's local. So I started going to the parkrun and got back into running and really enjoyed it. And then all the parkruns obviously were stopped due to COVID. So I thought, well, I want to keep this up. I actually do enjoy it. Saying enjoy it, you never enjoy running when you first start, and if you do, well, good on you. But you normally start to enjoy it halfway through, and then you've really gone, yes, at the end I did that, and you feel far better for doing it. So I continued running, and it was a strange time. The roads were really quiet. There was very little traffic on it, and obviously my husband was also away a lot. He wasn't back. Normally, I'm used to him. He goes away on a Monday morning, comes back on a Friday night or a Saturday morning. That's fine, but he wasn't back at weekends either. And I was out running one day, and I went, I'm not the only one that's in this situation. Most of the country is, and especially the rural community. I started thinking that there's no auction marts at the moment, or they can't go to them. There's none of that banter, maybe having a coffee and talking to farming friends, and everybody just, I thought, started feeling really isolated. And actually running or even going for a walk, you kind of switch off, you see your surroundings, and you just feel better for it. And I thought, maybe there's something we can do about that. And then I'm a proud supporter of RSABI, and I thought their events won't be happening this year, and they rely quite a bit in fundraising, so maybe I can combine it. So I spoke to a couple of friends, gave Will Evans a shout and said, I have an idea. And it just kind of snowballed from there into Run 1000.
Yeah. And teams from all four corners of the UK, and of course it's still going on.
It is, yeah. Everybody that enjoyed it last year. Two of the captains decided to carry on. I mean, it is very time consuming. The other two captains said, yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, but let's pass the baton on. So we got two new team captains this year, and actually we had Rest of the World. That kind of didn't work. Yeah. So we know there's a lot of work done in New Zealand. So I got in touch, and one of the members of Team Wales last year is actually a Welshman that lives in New Zealand. So he said, yeah, I'm up for it. And he captained Team New Zealand, and we did it again.
Yeah. Just saying, nominating Becky Leach for Team England captain next year. Just thought I'd put that out there. What's next for you? I mean, obviously you've still right now you've got lots of fingers in lots of pies. But are you sort of happy-ish doing where you are right now with your various aspects, or is there still other things that you'd like to do?
I'm in a really good pace at the moment. I am really, really enjoying what I do. I've got a good team that work with me. I'm really involved in loving the food and farming sector. The one thing that I'm really trying to do at the moment is, I'm sure it's the same all over the place. We've got loads of organisations doing loads of things and trying to join it up. So I've done a lot of work with agencies in this area and different groups and saying, look, this is what's happening in food and drink. This is what I'm doing. What are you doing in collaboration? a lot of collaboration. I get really annoyed when I hear of somebody doing something in a silo and somebody else doing it, and how we can bring that together. And I suppose the big thing at the moment is seasonality. I really feel that now, if we can't crack seasonality with everything that's going on at the moment, then we're never going to do it. We've got all the problems we've had with COVID, Brexit, and unfortunately what's happening in Ukraine, but we're discovering problems with our supply chains. So it's like, why do we need to eat stuff 12 months of the year? Why can we not go back to seasonality and supporting local and helping our local economies at the same time?
Yeah. Do you think, in terms of getting the message out about seasonality, and I mean, what else do you think could be done to that? Obviously, you're a bit of a social media guru. So if anyone, if there are any sort of key messages or ways of saying that message that people could do?
It's quite interesting. I was at a farm yesterday and we discovered we were seeing a lot of things. We kept agreeing with one another, and one of our pet hates is they do farm tours. They're brilliant at it.
Yep.
And they showcase what they do. And we were both saying how much we detest the word educate.
Yep.
And we need to educate people. And it's the most patronizing
Yep.
phrase out there. And so it's a great opportunity again for people to showcase what they do, to explain why they do it, but to use the correct terminology. And again, there's a lot being done with agritourism at the moment and things, but it was really great. We had a learning journey down here. We were on farms, some of them that were open to the public, some that weren't, but I know really well. And I said, look, I've got this group. Would you show them what you're doing? And it's a great opportunity, whether we invite people onto our farms, onto our food businesses, or whether we can do something on digital marketing to showcase what we do and why we do it and the reasons.
Yeah. And what about wider industry and industry supporting groups? What if you could give one bit of advice to them of sort of small, simple wins that they could do to support farmers, I suppose, and support the messages that farmers want to spread?
I think it's a great time for innovation, and there's so much happening at the moment in the way that farms have been doing things, and with the spiralling cost, that maybe this is a good time to reflect and look at what we're doing. And two of the farms that we went to this week, I absolutely loved what they said. So they got their farms, whether they bought them or they inherited them, and they actually looked at the farm and the type of farm, and then they decided what they were going to produce in that farm.
Right.
It wasn't a case of there's money in beef or there's money in venison or there's money in goats or whatever, just think random things, but they actually looked at what the farm could actually produce, and that's the way that they did things. And yeah, it's a difficult time, but I think I'm being an eternal optimist that this is a difficult time, but it's a fantastic opportunity at the same period.
We always finish the show with the same two questions, which I'm going to turn to now. Can't believe, yeah, time has flown. First is, if you have a message for the public, what would it be?
A message to the public. Actually, again, what I said, stop reading everything that you're told about the food and farming sector and actually research it and go out and find out for yourself what the industry is actually doing.
And finally, a message to farmers.
Oh, I'm probably going to get into trouble here. I think farmers, are actually, you can be your worst enemies to one another. You're really good at putting each other down and saying that what you do is right. Everything that you're all doing is probably right, and you're doing what's best for your farm. And can we just support each other a lot more?
Yeah, well said. We'll leave it there, Sheena, but thank you so much for coming on. I mean, how do people follow you on social media?
Look for Food from Farming, or look for Sheena Horner, or look for Galloway Chilies.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much for listening. And you're hearing me saying it a lot at the moment, but please do subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Post about on your socials. That really, really helps. If you enjoyed listening to Sheena's story and think others would be interested in hearing similar stories from the amazing people in the agriculture and rural sectors, you sharing it is the main way that people hear about the show. So I'd really, really appreciate that. Next time, I'm heading across the border. From me, I'll be in Suffolk again, and I'll be speaking to arable and poultry farmer Daniel Brown. So I hope you can join me then. But until then, have a great week.